Well, thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate you. Hopefully everybody can see me okay, but it's an honor to present to you my 2019 Jaguar I-Pace Hse. Hopefully you guys can see that real well. But I'm honored to be a part of this group. I'm a big fan of the tech behind the electric cars, and of course the side benefits of the emissions and all that kind of wonderful stuff is too. But the cars are just really, really cool. I come from a lineage of European and cars, and have to do my little offset here with the electric car. But I chose the black. This is 2019, and of the models that were available in 2019 was the first edition, an HSE, which for those of you who might not know means high spec edition in English. And then they have high spec, and then they have the SE, which is special edition. And they just have the S, which is just a sport, I suppose they call it. But here it is. I want to walk around the car a little bit so you can see it. It's a gorgeous car, I think. One of the things that drew me to the car on the exterior styling is it looks like one of those prototype drawing cars that never ever will ever get made, and yet Jaguar did it. So it's got some really unique lines, and if you kind of go back to your childhood and look at those cars of the future, this is what it looked like in my memory, and Jaguar actually built it. It's got some really nice arches on the fenders, goes down the car really nice. It's really quite a beautiful car in my narrow-minded opinion. It is technically an SUV, although I don't think I'll take it off-road, but it does raise and lower to accommodate for off-road territories. There's the backside. It's got some cool features, some that you may see in other electric cars as well. The door handles are all flush, just like the Teslas and others. As they just went again. There we go. Just kind of give you a peek of the car. We'll talk about it some more in a second. Another thing that drew me to the Jaguar, because I did get a chance to look at all the cars that were available in 2019, and I'm really used to a luxurious interior. I don't know if you can see in the background, I've got the BMWs, the Audis, and the Range Rovers in the background. And when I looked at some of the electric cars, they were luxurious to an extent, but the interior of the Jaguar is exactly what you would expect from, a high-end luxury sedan or SUV. So that really drew me over. I spent several hours in a Tesla, and although I loved it and almost bought it, it was the interior, which I know minimalistic is, part of their flair, and a lot of people love that. For me, I just preferred the actual real luxury interior. Actually, the back seat is pretty big. I'm gonna have my wonderful daughter sit in there so you can see her. She's about 5'8". Fits in there perfect. And my front seats are accommodating a 6-foot man and another 5'8" woman. So it's got plenty of room in there. Now let's take a look at the trunk real quick. Opens up, gets out of the way, gives you some room to put some stuff in here. It's a good sized trunk. The seats do fold down, give you some extra room. Of course, there is no spare tire underneath, just some tools. I did save the sticker for anybody that's a geek on the sticker prices and whatnot. If you guys can see that, I'm not sure if it shows up really well.
As I say, I see it says 76 miles per gallon E.
That's correct.
And then what's the range it says on there?
It says 234 miles on there, but I'm regularly seeing 255 on a full charge, except in the dead of summer. Dead of summer, when it's really hot around here, I'm seeing the 235-ish range because it's expecting me to use the air conditioning. This one was priced out about $80,000. With all the options, it hit about $86,000. The $7,500 federal tax credit helps out a lot.
I see that there's a thing that like something that's flat that's laying back there with that had straps on it.
Yes. Open it back up for me if you would. So Jaguar always throws in some really cool things. So this is just a trunk basket, if you will. It unlocks, folds open so you can throw some stuff in there. And it's got compartments on the inside that will open up as well, so you can stick your groceries in there, because things do wander around if you're in the trunk just loosely. But it does have these neat little hooks, which a lot of cars have nowadays, to hold the grocery bags that are plastic and so forth. If you can see those.
How much stuff? What's the biggest thing you fit back there?
Oh, the biggest thing I sit back there? Oh my gosh, let's see. Besides the kids getting in there, probably we've had two dressers in there. We moved this year. So we filled in the car with some stuff that didn't fit in the moving truck. So we've had a dresser in there. Here, I'll fold back one of the seats for us. That covering does come off, so it allows a little bit more room. This covering here, if you need anything tall, but it goes way back. They fold down really easy out of the way.
That's great.
Yeah, actually, these can come out of the way completely if you went to the seat belts, but there's a little hook here to keep them from getting all jammed up when you put it back.
We were talking about this yesterday, that you sort of consider it sort of a compact SUV. And
yeah.
So I think an expectation is that you have you can put some stuff in it, and like you can haul some stuff.
Exactly. Not quite as much as a full size Range Rover with the trunk, but it holds surprisingly a large amount for its size. But even though it may be considered a compact, it does have a lot of room on the inside. In fact, why don't you hop in the front seat, and I'll show you the dashboard where you see how much room it's got with somebody sitting in the front. So that's for a 6-foot person like me. So there's still plenty of room in there. Plenty of headroom in two of these things. This one actually has a glass roof, which may or may not be easy to see from here. But it certainly does allow for some rigidity, but also lots and lots of headroom. Right now it's at 99% charged, and I've got 254 miles on it, or are available on it right now. Let me hop in the back seat so you can see the dash a little bit better. It's an elegant dash. Things are kind of where you expect it, but yet it does have some cool tech to it.
What are the things that you like about, like, some of the, like, is it easy to use the different features?
It is. It's very intuitive. Shut the doors. It's very intuitive, so you don't have to learn anything because it still feels like a regular car. So switches are where you'd expect them to be. The door locks are where you expect to be. The windows up and down are where you expect to be. The biggest thing for me to get used to is the transmission is a little unusual. Granted, over the years, this has been around for a long time, but this is buttons for park, neutral, reverse, and drive. So that takes a little bit of getting used to. You can't do it quick without thinking. So I'm still learning that. It's not that I don't like it. I'm still learning it. But the interface is pretty intuitive, and it's pretty responsive, not as responsive as the Tesla per se, or even an iPad, but it has gotten better with software updates, which we can do over the air. And we probably have 6 or 8 times already in the last year where we've updated the software, just to continually improving things. One actually gave us more options for the instrument panel, because there's a lot of options on the instrument panel. I've got mine set up more of a traditional style. With some of the driver enhancement features, I've got the center of the dashboard with my advanced controls. Doesn't have a full driver assist, but it does have the ability to stay in the middle of the lane, follow lanes, slow down with traffic, the adaptive cruise control. It just won't watch stoplights. It does watch speeds limit signs, so it tells me the speed limit, but it doesn't do anything about it. Once you pump the glove box. Good size glove box. It fits just what it needs to. That's about it. This one does have all the luxury features that you'd expect: heated steering wheel, heated mirrors, heated front window, which certainly does take a lot of electricity in theory, but when I use it, the mileage doesn't adjust at all. Where if I use the heat or the air conditioner to extreme, you can see the mileage adjust depending on how long it thinks you may be doing that. Heated front seats, cooled front seats, heated back seats as well. The first edition had heated and cooled back seats, but they were all gone by the time I made my mind up last year. Nice, roof. Although as a driver, you don't get a chance to experience it too much. Let's go take a look at the front of the car. I'll show you how massive of a front it has, and I'm kind of being jestful, and I'll show you why. So the front of the car actually has this space down in the center. It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but this is actually goes all the way down to the grill. Since there's no need for a cooling mechanism, it actually forces air to go in underneath the hood. And I'll show you a second what that means. And up, down, over the top of the car, and then even down to the back side of the window, it has a spoiler which allows air to go through, which enables this not to have a rear wiper. Because as you're moving, just the flow of the air over the car clears the back window surprisingly well from rain or even just debris. So on the grill, it looks like a regular grill. It's got that mean looking Jaguar icon. But right here, right above it, it rolls over and goes up underneath here to this. Bear with me. There we go. So there's the front, very small. I can hold my little emergency charger for a 110 outlet, and that's about it. And I got a flashlight in there.
That reminds me of the i3. Has a really pretty small front. And they seem to have used up a lot of that space there for some reason. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so all the traditional components, AC, heater, and everything's behind that wall. And then this element that I told you about a second ago with the air flowing takes up a large portion of it. That settles down in there. And you see where it comes in, from there. If you can understand what I'm talking about on that, it's just really interesting feature. But it certainly does make for, cool design. So now I left fingerprints on there. I guess I'll get over it. You want to turn the headlights on, baby? Just getting time. Just turn the headlights on. They call those their signature J's, which I've seen it on other cars, but they're pretty. They do have the xenon headlights.
Can you control those things with an app?
To a certain degree, yes. So it does have an app for the phone, and I can start it. I can run climate control from the app. I can lock it and unlock it. I can flash the headlights, and I can sound a panic. And then I can schedule trips to go to the car, but that's pretty much it. I mean, that's a lot. That's pretty much it. This one does have the 21-inch wheels. They fit really, really nice. I've talked to other I-Pace owners who had the smaller wheels, and in conversation, it seems like the larger wheels doesn't really hurt the mileage as much as one would think, because it does create more friction. The same ranges I'm getting are the same ranges that they're getting.
I'm glad you touched on that, because for some EV owners, they wrestle with what tires to buy, because if you get really, really sticky tires, that's safer. But then that does tend to take a hit to range, and then how much do you fill the tires? Do you leave them underfilled, overfilled? There's all kinds of discussions about that.
I've even put nitrogen in mine, or the dealer put nitrogen for me, so the temperature changes don't make them leak. But I really haven't had any issues with the larger tires from different ranges from my friends who have bought the I-Pace that had the smaller tires. So for me, I would say it's probably not worth the stress for a mile or two, if that. I do use the regenerative braking, which I find fun. It took me about a day to get used to, and I've got it set on high. There are a couple options, but I have it set on high where you could literally drive it like, as a lot of you know, as a golf cart, and it's fun. I'm not sure how all the other cars handle the brake lights, but when you take your foot off the brake, take your foot off the accelerator, the car will slow down, and the brake lights will come on. But if you just lightly take your foot off the accelerator, it won't. There's a certain G-force that turns the brake lights on, just to be safe. But every time you start taking your foot off the accelerator, your brake lights aren't going to be coming on. I've heard some complaints about that from other manufacturers.
What other kinds of, that's a unique piece of technology there. Any other interesting sort of aspects to from a technology standpoint? And if you don't, I have one in mind that I think it's the I-Pace that does this, but where you can open up the trunk with your foot.
Yes. I can't demonstrate it because my daughter's got the key, but yeah, a lot of cars have that feature. For some reason, they haven't been in a lot of the electric cars, but I literally can just wave my foot here if the key's in my pocket, hands full of stuff, and it will open up. But my daughter's got the key in her pocket. So you just literally wave your foot right there and it opens up. See, wasn't that a cool demonstration? Yeah, that was cool.
I noticed too that the handles are like the Tesla, where they're recessed, but I guess do they automatically open or present themselves when you walk up to the car with the keys and all that?
So a little bit unique on these. They are recessed and they do pop out when you unlock the car. Instead of walking up to it, you just push this button here and it will open and close. And if it ever gives you any trouble, you can pull it out and use a key that's embedded into the key fob. It's folded down, hidden inside. So in case the doors don't work for some reason, you can still access the car.
That's great. I guess
it is super fast. It's a 400 horsepower, 512 foot-pounds of torque. It's got the 90 kilowatt engine or motor or battery or whatever it's called.
I guess there's the size of the. It's confusing too. It's like I guess there's a number for the battery size, and there's a number for like the output of the electric motor.
Yeah.
And I think one is expressed in kilowatt hours. I think it's the battery, but then I think the output is in kilowatts.
Kilowatts, right?
That's how I try to remember it. What's your 0 to? I'm sure a lot of people have asked this, but what's your 0 to 60?
Oh my gosh! So the reports say it's slower than it actually is. I've timed it 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. It is terrifyingly fast. I mean, that's a good thing, but it is it is faster than you will ever need. That's for sure.
Especially with electric cars, because they're very responsive. So when you put your foot on the accelerator, you get all that power right there. So you gotta, when I've test driven electric cars, I always have to be careful about that.
Yeah. Now this one's pretty cool where it does have driving modes. So I've trained my kids when they drive it, which are 19 and 21, not 16, but it has a economy mode, which will just maximize the range. It'll bump it up sometimes to 280, assuming you're going to keep driving it economically. But it does cut off some features, like the air conditioner won't just continually run. It'll come on when it's needed to. Whereas in regular mode, the air conditioner or heater is always just trying to keep a constant temperature. That does take some juice. But what it also does is it limits how much power the car will be enabled to. So if you got it in economy mode, it'll be the slowest, which is still very, very fast. And then in regular comfort mode, it's very, very fast. But then it's got something called dynamic mode that will pull the full, range that you need, or full power that you need from the get-go. It has the ambient lighting on the inside, which actually changes with the driving mode. So red for dynamic, blue for standard, and then like green for economy. It does have some artificial noise, which is unexpected in an electric car, but they said they were putting the soul back into the car. It's very, very subtle. It's increased in the dynamic mode, but it actually sounds like a growl. I dare say a Jaguar growl, because I really haven't heard a Jaguar growl, but it actually sounds really cool. It does feel lonely without it, which is strange. I've come from BMWs, they made a lot of noise, to the electric car, which is very quiet, but this growl that it has gives you just enough soul to know that you're doing something. And I actually like it. This one has the backup sound, but not the forward sound at slow speed like the newer cars have now. So I haven't heard what the 2020 or 2021 I-Pace sounds like at low speeds going forward, but I understand that it's been mandated. I just haven't heard it yet. Here, I'll let you listen to it. Hold on a second. Hey, baby, would you just put it in reverse so I can hear the noise? Start it up. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Strangely, it comes from the front. I don't know if you hear that or not. So I'm not sure what good it actually does, but I understand the newer ones have that similar noise going forward.
That's always an interesting thing about electric cars is I've had to be more aware, like when I'm in the garage or some environment like that, where people might be walking by and they may not hear me.
Right.
So there's definitely a balance between safety, in those kind of situations. But then, I also really value the quiet too when you're driving, the relative quiet. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's very, very peaceful. So of course it does have a backup camera. It's got the all over. If you can see that too, it's got the view from space above the car, like a lot of cars have now. Very, very cool.
So I'm curious to know, like, what's the first? Have you taken the car like on road trips, and if so, like, how far have you gone?
I have. So I haven't gone as far as some drivers, but I've gone to the Outer Banks from Newport News, all the way down to Hatteras, and there are charging stations between here and there, just few and far between. A couple high speeds. There are certainly Tesla chargers along that journey that we can't use because we do have the standard charger, which I'll show you here in a second. But I have taken that. So I can go to the Outer Banks. I can wander around the Outer Banks, but I can't make it back home, or I could barely make it back home. So I've got to charge, while I'm there. We've got a place at the beach, so we just put in a charge point charger at the house and also the beach so we can make it back and forth. Look at that finish. How you doing? Beautiful car.
Yeah, what color is that? It's like I think you mentioned what the color was, but or maybe you might.
Yeah, it is black, but it is just it's a brilliant. It's a limousine black. It's just really truly black, but it's just got that high reflective. It's just a great paint job, and they spent quality work to make it look good, as you would expect from a high-end luxury car.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing about electric cars, that you focus on making a really good car, and then it just happens to be electric.
Right. So what were some of the questions you had, sir?
So yeah, I was going to say it's about 2:30, so it's about right time. And if you had, unless you had, the only other question I would ask you now, I'll open it up to the floor. Is I guess what I always like to ask this question because the answers are always interesting to me. Like what was the most pleasant surprise in buying an electric car or owning an electric car, and what's I'll put like the least pleasant surprise.
The least pleasant surprise, which I kind of knew going into it, was just the lack of charging stations, but they are findable if you dig deep, and they're really not that inconvenient. So that was the least exciting thing to find out. But also very affordable to put them in. I bought them for $300 off of Amazon, installed them for $600, so it was no big deal. The most exciting thing was how convenient there are places to charge it. For instance, I charge it at work primarily. Well, not this year. I haven't been in the office since March. But at our office complex in City Center of Newport News, there are 4 parking garages, and all of them have 2 to 3 charging stations per garage. And they don't charge anything. It's free. So I just pop in there, work, charge it all day long, and I come home and no big deal. If I want to go somewhere on the weekend, then I'll just top it off at the house. But rarely do I have to charge it at the house, except for this year. And then when I was going from 14 miles a gallon from the Range Rover to, like you said, 76 equivalent, it was a big difference.
Thank you for sharing.
Saving a lot of money in gas.
I was going to say, thank you for sharing that, because, I mean, when you look at studies and you talk to people, the majority of EV owners charge at home, but it depends. Everyone's situation is a little bit different. So I'm glad that you shared that and that you're able to have that. I think having the workplace charging is, it's something that, that would be great to have and to support in the going forward to expanding the EV market, because some people can't charge at home. Yeah. And then if you have to drive a long distance to get to work, and then while you're at work, instead of your car just sitting there, it can actually be refueling itself while you go about your business. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think Jeffrey did have a question, so we'll jump to the questions. Jeffrey had asked about if there are any Electrify America stations on the route from Newport News to OBX. That's a good question.
So I may not know that answer fully, but there are the charging stations at Walmart, but I'm not sure of the partnership that they were using for Electrify America or not. But there's not many yet.
Right, right. And in Virginia, at least, there's also EVgo has been building charging stations, DC fast chargers, as part of a network that's going to be in Virginia.
Yeah.
Using some of the money from the Volkswagen Dieselgate settlement.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, so far in Richmond, I know that they've installed 2 locations in Richmond, and then you know, they've been doing it around. I forget what the goal was. They have a certain number they want to do this year, and then a certain number next year. So they're gradually, you know, building it up. I think the objective is to have them pretty closely spaced to each other, so you can help facilitate longer journeys, you know, when you're driving around the state. So hopefully we'll see that. But with Electrify America adding on to that, and you know, private individuals doing it too.
Those apps have been very, very useful, like Plug-in, you know, the Plug Share app on finding the stations and whether or not they're working, and the customer experience while using. Those have been very, very helpful. Yes,
I definitely recommend to those who you haven't heard of it or not use it, that because every like charging network has its own app where you can, you know, activate the station, and they'll list where their stations are, and sometimes they'll put others in there, like ChargePoint app does that, but PlugShare is always a good place to start.
Yeah,
they have everybody in there.
They do.
Any other questions anybody has? I see that we have a gentleman named Kenby that joined us earlier. Did you have any particular questions about the I-Pace or about EVs in general? Or anybody else that's on the line or on the session? You know, this is a good opportunity to pick David's brain about his car and his experiences.
David, you know, Jeffrey here. Actually, I was really curious about the growl. Do you think your daughter could just drive it a little bit so we might hear that?
Ooh, yeah. I think so. It's very, very subtle, but we can certainly give it a try. I don't know if I'll lose the connection or not, but we can try.
Thank you. Yeah, it is interesting, the different sounds. Like I know mine I have a Nissan Leaf, and then so mine makes a sort of a. It makes that if you're a lower speed, it makes what
and then I'll drive.
It sounds like a spaceship kind of sound, and then when you're backing up, it sounds like literally like a truck is backing up. So it's very obvious. And I remember when I was test driving my Leaf the first time, and I was backing up. I was like, "What does that sound?" And I panicked because I thought there was somebody backing out behind me. Oh no, that's you. My wife is in the back seat and the front seat with me.
We're gonna try to. I'm talking to my daughter real quick. We're gonna try to see if we can hear the growl of the motor, or if the noise is supposed to make you think like it's got a motor in it. All right, so I'm using the strange stalk here to change the gears, and I'm going to put it in dynamic mode to maximize the sound. You can't quite see it yet, but the dash just kind of has a red hue. The ambient lightings are now red around the doors. But let's see if we can hear anything. I got to put it back in drive. Seatbelt on so crazy lady. Set up.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Yeah, well, Wi-Fi.
It is interesting to how the sounds can be subtle as well.
It's very subtle. It's louder and dynamic if you can hear me. I don't know if you heard it or not.
I heard a little bit of it before you locked up. So yeah, it's like a, you know, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, not too obnoxious. You know, there's like you said, there's enough of a sound that it's there so that you know you're doing something, but then not so much that, you know, because I don't know. By the way, is there an option to turn it off?
There is an option to turn it off. There is an option also to adjust it, so it can be loud as you want. That was the max. That was as loud as it gets. But there is a way to adjust it.
Interesting.
I may not remember how to do it on the fly with you watching me though.
Oh, that's fine. I just my thing is I always wonder why, since the sounds are all electronic, it would be cool if you could like make it the sound that you want it to make. When you start the car and then when you're driving it, because I'm sure people would have all kinds of fun with that. The way people use ringtones and things. So anyway,
so I could adjust my the creep, where I can take my foot off the brake at stoplights if I want to. The high recharge there.
I'm curious to know what kind of feedback you get, because I know with most electric vehicles, as you're driving, and you don't have to necessarily drive to show this, but like as you're driving, is there any indication of like how much you're regenerating energy and how much you're using?
It does. It can be a little distracting, so I don't use it regularly. But under the My EV section of the dashboard, this will show up when I'm driving. So obviously the car loses its green when the battery goes, and then this side will actually show you where the power is going to which wheel as necessary if you're going off-road, as well as the battery adjustments, as well as the direction of the car. It has an arrow that goes the direction of the car.
It's a mixed bag because it can be distracting, and then I find, I guess, where it comes in handy is like if I'm thinking on a long trip and I want to get a better sense of, because I'm not the most efficient driver in the world, so I have a tendency to pump it a little bit, like accelerate a little too hard, and sort of the sort of jackrabbit start kind of thing. It drives my wife crazy when I'm driving, and so again, that feedback has kind of helped over the years alleviate some of that. But then, especially when I'm taking a long drive and I want to try to maximize, that I want it to brake as much as possible on its own and not accelerate too much to use up too much power, and so there's having the whole hypermiling thing. So. Right,
that makes sense.
Well, good question, Jeffrey. Anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, hello. Is that red protector for the on-off switch something you added, or was that a standard feature?
So this was something added after the fact, because I just hit something. So in 2019, there were some people that were hitting the power button when they weren't supposed to, because of the radio knobs over here and this little button's right here, and they were causing some issues with the car. So Jaguar sent out just a notice to be very, very careful not to accidentally hit it until they figure out how to fix the software where you can hit it when you're not supposed to and nothing happens. So I ordered this when they said it, just to stick it on there, just to help prevent anybody who might borrow the car not hit it by accident.
Yeah, that was a problem with Volts to a minor extent, that the on-off switch is very close to the mode switch and people were hitting it, but you have to hit it twice if you're moving, in order to turn it off. And some people have done it. I will admit that I've actually hit it once while I was driving, but I've never shut the car down.
Yeah, so it can be easily done. This one, you hit it once. So I know they're going to fix it in a software update. So it may already be fixed. I don't want to try it.
Yeah, on Volts, you have to hit it twice, and there have been some people that actually obey the thing on the screen and do it, and then they actually shut the car down. But you can put it in neutral and restart, but yeah.
Right. So that was an aftermarket. It was like $30 and no big deal, but I think it looks cool. Good question.
Cool. Any other questions? I have one in particular, in terms of like what you like about that, like what drew like, and I think, and forgive me if you touched on this earlier, but I know when we were talking the other day that you were sort of weighing Tesla versus Jaguar. So if you could describe a little bit of that, like sort of what made you decide to go, like consider Jaguar and Tesla, and then what made you decide to go one way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was coming from high-end luxury cars, and I was really intrigued by the electric cars, but wasn't seeing the level of fit and finish and quality material the leather, the things that I would expect, but also just the positioning of the gadget. So this actually has a very, very luxurious interior, very, very luxurious leather interior with lots of features. But everything is as you would expect it. The windows are on the doors, the locks are on the doors, the memories are on the doors, things that I'm used to. Granted, I could learn new things, but I was kind of used to it. But the most important thing was just the luxury fit and finish. It just feels like a very luxurious car as compared to the Tesla, which is an amazing car. And some of the other electric cars are also amazing, but this feels like a high-end luxury car because that's what I had been used to, and that's really what I really enjoy. And there are USB chargers under here, by the way. So that was one of the biggest things that said, man, I'm buying this Jaguar, right now, was after we spent just minutes on the interior. It was like, this is a luxury car that just happens to be electric.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different than, so Tesla is moving towards more minimalistic, especially with the 3
Right.
and the Y. We just have that one big screen and then that's it. So there's not all those little details that would be sort of signals to luxury.
Right. And that's okay. That's not what I was used to, but that was one of the things that drew me to it.
I'm kind of curious to open that question to other to Humphrey and Jeffrey, owning different other kinds of cars. I guess for you, how important those kinds of considerations in terms of the fit and finish, not so much luxury, but this idea of this fit and finish. Because you hear a lot of people complain about Tesla and other cars too, about gaps and about how, like when you're driving, how solid is it feeling is driving, that sort of thing. And so I'm curious to know what other people's how much that weighed in their choice of vehicle.
Well, Charles, I mean, of course, if you go way, way back on the channel, the YouTube channel, you can see my video. But one thing I like is that my 3 has a very minimalist interior. I like the minimalist aspect of it. It's, comforting to just say, okay, here's one screen, everything else, no, above the wheel, anything. It's just drive, and then there's the screen. Now that's me. But that's personal opinion.
Yeah, Humphrey, what do you?
Yeah, I would say I've never been a luxury car owner. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down, but then again, I don't feel the need to actually go out and look for it. But I was always been more into utilitarian things, and to me, quality is more about not breaking more than feeling luxurious or something like that. Because in my history, I've owned Fords, and I got into Saturn for many years, and Saturn never made a luxury vehicle. And then the Chevy Volt was just kind of falling from, staying in the GM family. So now I have a Chevy Spark EV, which you talk about almost a tin can little econo box, but it's a fun car, and its quality is decent for what it is, and for what it costs. So I wouldn't turn down the luxury features, and I would certainly expect a certain level of quality that makes it durable, but I wouldn't necessarily need to have, the ultimate luxury interior.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's definitely a contrast. But I've heard of the Spark is a really fun car to drive. It's got a bit of horsepower to it, from what I understand.
It does. I mean, I think it's like 140 horsepower, but it's got like 327 pound-feet of torque or something like that. For a car that small, it's quite a lot. What surprised me, though, is it doesn't have a backup camera, which I thought was required by 2016. Turns out it was actually required in 2008, but they didn't finalize the actual regulation until 2018. So only later Sparks, which there was no latest Spark EV after 2016, has a standard backup camera, but they did say it was an option.
Yeah, that reminded me of something on the quality level. As you can imagine, with any new car, especially first year of a new design or brand new car, there's always that concern of quality. And I think Jaguar has probably had its fair share, as with every manufacturer. But I have been very, very blessed. I've got 13,000 miles on it now. I've owned it for going on a year and a half, and I've done nothing to the car except for, I think twice they had me come in, one for a major software update that gave me 12 miles more range. And then one was just for the regular checkup. And the cool thing about Jaguar is when the car needs service. Granted, this one doesn't need it very often, but when it does need service, scheduled or otherwise, they will come down to my house, pick it up, leave me a Jaguar or a Range Rover, and do what they need to the car. And a couple of days later, bring it back. And it is not an issue at all. It's so convenient. I've really enjoyed that.
I'm glad
But
you
I've done.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you touched on that, because I think one question I get is like, where do you service EVs? You know, and so, you know, in the case of Tesla, you know, they have their own service centers, but then, you know, they're more, you know, and of course, taking it to the deal, like you mentioned, and the local shops are starting to get into it. I've been noticing more of them saying that they can handle either hybrids or electrics or both. So it's improving. So that's great to hear that they have that, they provide that level of service.
Yeah, it's very nice. And the closest Land Rover Jaguar dealership from me where I live is one's about 50 minutes away and the other one's about an hour and a half away. So neither are convenient, but I found one I've got a great relationship with, and they drive down and pick it up. And if they needed to, they would bring me a car still and tow it if they had to. But that's I guess that's part of what you pay for when you pay the higher price of the luxury end. But it certainly is convenient. But I'm glad that nothing's happened. I've read a few things where they've had some issues on them, but that's the nature of mechanics.